right off now on page.
Yeah, I can say, okay, we're recording now. So you're reading from my book, Closer to God, or A Journey to the Self. You're at
526, I think I said,
right.
yeah.
So you got about 120 about 150 pages to go then, because that one's 670 pages, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so for those who haven't been watching, this is probably, I don't know, it's about the 8th or 10th video we've done on this. We've been starting from the very beginning when you started reading the book, and we're working our way through it. And what you're doing is you're highlighting bits that you consider to be of value to speak about. And so
Yeah.
you've got some more highlights there. And so, well, let's crack on.
Yeah, it's pretty big highlights, so to speak,
Mm.
sometimes full pages.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I just thought, maybe I could draw a highlight, but I think there's so many
Yeah, it,
interesting things
it, it
coming
um,
here.
gives more context anyway if you read the whole thing.
Yeah. So starting off at page 514, the invisible glue that holds energy fields together. Many years ago, I began to ponder what the phenomena was that held power structures like governments together and kept them in self perpetuation throughout many years. It seemed to me that there was an invisible force that continued with or without humans to work within it. When we look back through history, we can see that political power has always existed. Chiefs and monarchs have always been the focal point of the clan or regional people. From the offset, we may consider that there is no substance to what hap- uh, I am saying. You may think it to be exceedingly elementary what is happening within the human groups. You may think that the group of people either votes for a leader or to rule or over them, or a tyrant usurps the position, and there is nothing more to it than that. Let us look at this a little closer. When the leader die or are killed, another leader instantly takes over to fill that position, even if it is only a temporary measure before the official process of inauguration is completed. In Britain, we have the saying, "The king is dead, long live the king." The phrase arose from the law of "Le mort saesit le vif," that the transfer of sovereignty occurs instantaneously upon the moment of death of the previous monarch. The king is dead is the announcement of a monarch who has just died. Long live the king refers to the heir who immediately succeeds to a throne upon the death of the preceding
Monarch.
monarch. We can see by this simultaneous transference of power that there is a very necessary requirement that the position of leadership should never be an empty energy from left to linger unattended in the ether, because these power positions always had to um, be occupied for the stability of any given nation. This is one feasible explanation, but there is another that we might want to consider. This option is that there is a natural phenomena taking place which has existed from time immemorial. There is a phenomenological constituent of the cosmos that commands, demands, necessitates a life form to occupy those pre existing energy fields. Hold this thought for a moment without rejecting it on the grounds of it being preposterous, because there is a very elementary and feasible explanation which fits perfectly without conjuring up any supernatural mysticism to scare us all and confuse us beyond reasonable measure.
Okay, so let us address that then, and then I'll take a turn in reading the next thing. So,
Yeah,
what we are dealing with here, um, the invisible glue that holds energy fields together.
yeah,
Now, uh, when we look at flocks of birds, or schools of fish, or herds of wildebeest, or ant colonies, bee colonies, all these sort of things, there is an energy field which they operate within. And what I am saying is, this is partly my hypothesis, and it's partly Rupert Sheldrake's morphic resonance hypothesis.
yeah,
Um, Albeit we don't say the same things, but what I noticed is that when we see beehives, uh, whilst the bees exist, they are all together in the hive and they're all
yeah,
communicating with each other. They know exactly what to do. How on earth do these small creatures know their exact parts to play, where to go to gather the nectar, to come back to make the honey, to make the beehive and the comb, where they put their larvae and all these different sort of things? How do all these individual bees know how to do that? What's the source of communication? Now, Rupert Sheldrake says that it's something called morphic resonance. They are these morphic resonant fields which these creatures operate within. And I may be doing a little bit of an extension on that, and I'm saying that these energy fields, they exist whether they're occupied or not. Because what happens is when a queen bee, she lays larvae, which then turn into workers and foragers and all this. They enter into the pre-existing energy field. They know exactly what to do because they're getting the information from the energy field. You see, if brains are if intelligence is supposed to be premised on the size of brain, like they reckon it is, and we've got the biggest brains, maybe except elephants. That's why we're the most intelligent. Well, ants are very, very intelligent. They
yeah,
operate in their societies very similar to what we do. And so, can we imagine how small an ant's brain is? So, I'm dismissing that notion of what
yeah,
science reckon. I think it's wrong.
yeah, me
Or at
too.
least if it's not wrong, then the ants work on another intelligence.
Yeah,
They've got the brain in the ether, like Wi-Fi. That's what
yeah,
they're tapping into. Their antennae, they are tapping into their Wi-Fi called the
yeah,
morphic resonance, like the Akashic records. It's got all the information in which they need to operate their colonies.
yeah. Like the brain is a receiver and sending station more.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yeah. And then when we look at how that applies to human beings, well, we gather in societies. We work very, very similarly, like ants do, building our little colonies. And, we have soldiers, we have hunter gatherers, we have people that tend very important people, like the Queen and the monarchs and all these sort of things. It's very, very similar, Andre. In actual fact, it's uncannily similar. It's
Yeah.
spookily similar. How these tiny creatures exhibit an intelligence similar to human beings. And ants also, they go on warring sorties. They
Yeah.
send scouts out to evaluate the size of a colony. They know how big it is, and if it's smaller than the colony that they pertain to, then they know that they can overpower it by just sending the mass of soldiers. If it's too big, they don't attack. This is
Yeah.
clever.
Yeah. It's you can also see which ant colony that has won over the other, so to speak, when it's all done. If you look at the two untils,
Yeah.
because there will be like less activity in the other ant hill
Well, usually what
afterwards.
yeah, what happens is when the soldiers of the attacking colony attack the other colony, they kill the soldiers and they enter into the colony and they kidnap the queen and they steal the larvae. And all the rest of the ants then follow the queen and the larvae. So the vanquished colony should be empty
Yeah.
because all the other ants have gone to join the other colony. And this is why they do it. This is why ant colonies attack smaller colonies, because they want their colony to be bigger so it isn't subject itself by being attacked by a bigger colony. You see, they
Yeah.
know all this stuff.
Yeah. It is really amazing how it works. Yeah. That but still human being seem more deficient in many ways because we have so many split up personalities and so on.
Yes, there's too much pulling apart at the central system. You see,
Yeah.
ants, they don't pull apart at the central system. They know exactly what their objective is and they always stay together. I've never known of an ant colony which turns on itself and starts killing its own and, eating the babies and, killing the queen. I've never known that. But that's what we do. We do that.
Yeah. They work like one organism.
Yeah.
And that's similar like ideology always want the human being to work like one organism,
Yes.
like nationalism want everybody to work like an organism, like within the nation, so to
Yeah.
speak, and
If we could
socialism the same, you know.
Yeah, if we could do that, then of course, by now we would have super cities. We would have massive technological advancements. There would be no suffering and all the rest of it if we had the community the same as ants and bees do, but we don't. We tear each other apart. There's always greed and fear of rivals and xenophobia and all different sorts of things in play. And so this is an amazing chapter.
Yeah.
Um, and so, did you highlight the second part as well?
Yeah, I highlighted that as well. I just wanted to say that I think this aristocratic thing where the king is dead, long live the king, is a interesting system where it right away jumps in a new king, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yeah. So,
So it keeps on going
yeah,
no
they
matter
don't
what.
leave that energy field vacant.
Yeah,
they've always got in mind who is going to be replacing it. So there's never a void, because if there's a void, there's a vulnerable realm for someone to usurp.
Yeah.
And of course, because we've been fighting um, kings against kings and queens against queens for so long, we know the great importance of never having a gap between any monarchy, because the people get insecure, they don't know what's going to happen, they feel like they're not being protected and all different sorts of things. So the king is dead, long live the king, instantly. Another king is brought into that position before they've got the coronation. They've still got the coronation to go, but that takes time. But everybody knows they've got a king or queen.
Yeah.
So that's really, really important, of course, in governments as well.
Yeah.
Because when countries have maybe, let's say, a prime minister or a president dies, and it took the country by surprise, and they haven't got anybody lined up. I mean, yeah, of course, invariably there's a deputy prime minister or deputy president like Camilla or
Yeah.
Kamala. She's
Yeah.
just stood in, right?
Yeah.
So they always have that. And that's the same as Long Live the King. Because there's always someone. But, in the old days when they never thought about that, if a king was young and the people were thinking, well, no point in looking for a replacement just yet, but then they go and die very quickly, then it's kind of like, shit, who we're going to have? We've got to get the Congress or Parliament together, we've got to vote in, and then there's going to be arguing, everything like this. So they always have a listed deputy to solve that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very powerful. Um, and so what I said at the beginning of this section is that people may think that I'm speaking silly. They may think that it's very elementary what's going on. Oh, the government's there and they're just doing what they're doing. But people don't look into the depth of what actually really is going on. Because look,
Yeah.
when you look at governments, now, it doesn't pertain to the building, because in times of war, when the buildings get blown up, governments very, very quickly move somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
actual fact, they will move before the event. They'll go underground so they're protected, so they can continue to run the country and all these
Yeah.
different sorts of things. And so, what actually is happening? There is an energy field which
Yeah.
pertains to running the country. And uh, this energy field will have many, many employees. The employees are not that important. They come and go all the time. And if
Yeah.
you looked at the House of Parliament and you monitor through 1 year, new employees coming in and old employees leaving, some dying and some resigning, some being sacked, it's a constant flux. They're changing all the time. So it's nothing to do with the building, it's nothing to do with the people, it's to do with the concept and the energy. And it's this energy which keeps sucking in new meat to continue the energy, why it extricates or excrements, the others, So it brings in and it shits out. But the energy of the state is always there, because the energy of the state, Andre, is in the human psyche. Like the energy of the colony is in ant psyche. It's already there. So when you get, for instance, if you get an ant colony which is wiped out, the queen's dead and everyone's scattered, then there will be another queen somewhere which will start to lay larvae and build another colony. And then workers will come, and then the larvae will be born, and some of them are workers, and some of them tend the queen, and all that, and all the time while that's happening, the energy is building, and the information field is building. And so I think that the energy field has to be there before the ants enter into the energy field, because the only alternative, Andre, is that the ants contain all the brains in their heads. And when the queen is born, then she starts telling all the rest of them to do. No, it doesn't work like that. They're all born knowing what they should do, exactly what they should do. How is this? Genetics, but where did the genetics come from originally? It came from information, didn't it? It came from intelligence. And so this is the morphic resonance, which people are engaged with. And we can look at the morphic resonance, and we could say, well, the Akashic records is something like that. We could say
Yeah.
Carl Jung's collective unconscious is something like that. Even the collective consciousness is an energy field, because I can say something and you can say, I was just going to say that. Well, where's
Yeah.
that coming from? It's coming from the ether. It's coming from, the Akasha or whatever. Because, I think it's pretty established these days that consciousness isn't in the brain. It doesn't derive out of the brain. Nobody knows where consciousness derives from. So I would say it's a morphic resonance. The cosmos is conscious.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another thing where, like, they have done studies with monkeys, where there's one island where certain monkeys start to use a certain tool or use a certain way of doing things. Then another island where those monkeys doesn't have any contact with each other start a little while do the same thing, so to speak.
Yes. So,
So
so that
yeah,
was tested. Rupert Sheldrake speaks about this because there was a test done very recently. And what the scientists did, they gave monkeys on an isolated island potatoes. And they knew that none of these monkeys had potatoes in that region. They'd never seen potatoes before. So they gave them the potatoes like on the beach next to the water. And the monkeys decided that the potatoes are very unpalatable if they have sand all over them. So they started to wash the potatoes in the sea or in the lake before they were eating them. And very quickly after, um, the scientists introduced potatoes to another island, and the monkeys instantly started to wash the potatoes before they ate them. They never had to go through this evolutionary stage. So
yeah,
they learned, they had a point of evolution without going through the intermediary state of discovering that the potatoes tasted shit with sand on them. They washed
yeah,
them first, instantly.
yeah.
That's very, very bizarre.
Yeah, it's interesting. It also shows how different ideas from human beings can pop up simultaneously with no relation to each other, so to speak.
Yes, and so I suppose we may be able to attribute why human beings have built pyramids all over the world
Yeah,
at similar times. They learned how to do masonry, very, very similar.
yeah,
Uh, Different places around the world, from um, Angkor. Um, what's the second name in Cambodia? Um,
yeah. Ankara or what?
Angkor Wat, is it? Is it called Angkor Wat?
I can't remember the name really. I
Yeah,
know what you mean. Yeah,
and then down in Peru, you've got the similar sort of stones and stuff like that. So, I mean, you see, some people they'll speculate that there are aliens and advanced species that could travel, but it doesn't necessarily need to be that. It could be just morphic resonance.
Yeah, that's also.
Because we learned how to speak, write, and have language pretty well similar all over the world. It's not like on one continent, they never had their own language, albeit lots of varieties of human were very backdated. For instance, the Aborigines in Australia, they never had language. They had very very basic language, but they never had written language. They 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 um, they didn't invent that.
uh,
Whilst Sumerians started thousands of years before.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's like some tribes were very late with inventing the wheel and such in Africa as well. Yeah,
Yeah, and so you would think, well, if morphic resonance was really a thing, then it would spread all over the world with all nationalities and creeds. But
yeah,
there's literally thousands of years between things happening. But maybe that's just a small time in the space of evolution.
yeah. That's
But these
also.
monkeys, they did it instantly. So why
Yeah,
didn't we do things instantly? Why didn't human beings do things instantly? Why weren't we all building bivouacs the same? And then when one tribe started to build wooden huts, why weren't we all doing it all over the world?
yeah,
And when we look at the first arches being built, well, that information seemed to have needed to have been passed on, um, because that wasn't a thing in Egyptian times or in Peruvian times, or even Syrian times. The arch, um, was that a Greek invention, or was it a Muslim invention? I'm not sure, but
the arch.
yeah.
Hmm. Is it some kind of contraption where you put an arrow in it?
No, the arch, building an archway.
Uh-huh. Ah, okay.
Yeah, because the original arches, were kind of like this. It took them a long time before they could build an arch like that.
Hmm.
Because they had to work out the stress on everything. And, building an arch like this is much easier because the weight comes down like that. But building an arch like that, you've got all this weight pushing down
Yeah.
here. But when they shaped the blocks to press out the weight and even it down the structure, that was a very clever thing.
Hmm.
Anyway, we're digressing.
Yeah.
I'll read the second bit, shall I?
Yeah. Yeah.
If we use Occam's razor as a guide to our philosophy, Occam's razor is when we choose the simplest and most elementary of solutions to any problem.
Yeah.
So
Comes
I
from a philosopher, a British
Willem,
philosopher.
Willem
Ockham.
of Ockham, Willem of Ockham.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what year it was, but I write about it in here. I explain it. So, if we use
Yeah.
Occam's razor as a guide to our philosophy, we will always revert to the simplest of explanations for any given inquiry. However, Occam's razor as a hypothesis isn't by no means cast in concrete, and when we look a little deeper at the nature of reality, we discover that on myriad occasions, the simplest of explanations isn't, in fact, the cause of any phenomenon and may not be the only reason for its existence, but it is a good rule of thumb from which to begin our investigation. Now, like what we were just saying, if we use Occam's razor and we say, well, morphic resonance tells monkeys how to wash their potatoes first, well, all monkeys all over the world should be doing that, but they
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
And when one nation learned to build a variety of pyramid, well, all nations all over the world should be doing it at the same time, but they don't. So therefore, we've got to look for another explanation. This is what I'm saying. It's not
Yeah.
always Occam's razor. There's many other variables. So, there are invariably multiple levels from which to investigate any given realm, bearing in mind that this Earth experience is, in fact, a phenomenological one as well as an apparent physical one. The physical and mental human facets of our presently discussed subject is: what is it that has held governments in place for so long? I.e., has it been people's will for power, as Nietzsche once expounded upon? On the surface, it reveals an elementary reason for its occurrence and offers a very feasible explanation that may deter us from looking deeper for an alternative cause. However, investigating things further, it is the nature of science and philosophy. A desire for simplicity might be the most obvious reason the layperson would not want to continue the investigation. Now, if we have an explanation, which, yeah, is morphic resonance, that's what, that's the simplest thing, or, it's not the simplest thing, but let's just say it is, then people don't look any further. But we need to keep looking further and further and further because we could be wrong with our
Yeah.
hypothesis.
Yeah.
So I say here, they may feel it pointless since they feel as if they have already discovered the elementary reason, the Occam's razor, for its occurrence. But if, on the other hand, we are more philosophical and spiritual in our disposition, then we will always continue looking for additional or alternative reasons why something makes manifest. While doing so, we will likely end up in the supernatural realm. The supernatural realm will never elude our philosophical inspection if we look broadly enough. It is always there, just waiting to be discovered. However, most scientists have fallen by the wayside long before the supernatural reason for something's existence would be upturned, leaving only the philosopher and the bravest of scientists to wrestle with the question in mind. So, what I'm saying here is that, very often things aren't elementary. There isn't a rational explanation like morphic resonance, like the Akashic record, like
Yeah.
telepathy, all these different sorts of things. There's no rational explanation. So scientists
Yeah.
haven't got a clue about that. So we mustn't ever just settle of whatever scientist wants to tell us, because
Yeah.
there's more ways to skin a cat than just the science way,
Yeah. Yeah. All truth are about half truth, like it's said in the Hermetic Principles.
Yeah,
So always nuances to it all, so to speak.
yeah, and I'm sure that truth is constantly shifting.
Yeah.
It's always changing. It's growing. It's morphing.
Yeah.
Um, and
You,
what
you
was true.
can you can never catch it if it always changes.
Yeah. And so with this book that I'm currently reading, ISIS Unveiled, I'm on the last 50 pages. So
Mm.
it's a 600-page book, and I'm on the last 50 pages. And it's very, very interesting when we read books which are like 150 years old,
Yeah.
because these people were very, very learned at that time, and they collated information from the most learned people on the planet, and they only knew so much. Now, 150 years on, of course, we know a whole lot more. And so it's wonderful to hear these people hypothesizing about one day science will swallow their hubris, and, they will start to accept that, this is a spiritual cosmos and this, that, and the other. Well, now everybody accepts astral projection. Everybody talks
Yeah.
about near death experience, whereby
Yeah.
uh, Madame Blavatsky and the Theosophical Society couldn't get anyone to acknowledge that. It was all woo woo and devil
Mm.
worshipping.
Yeah.
So we've changed and morphed and grown exponentially in 150 years. And so now, when we consider certain things, well, just imagine 150 years how we are going to have grown massively by comparison.
Yeah. Yeah, but not without big road bumps or total elimination on the
Yeah,
way or something.
yeah, because things, people have to die. The
Yeah,
old paradigm has to die.
yeah,
And this is what scientists and philosophers say. They say that you'll find it very, very difficult to bring in a new way of thinking whilst you've still got old dogs um, adamant and stuck in their ways. About things. And this is why the innovations in science invariably come about with young men, young women also, but predominantly young men, 20 between 20 and 30, whilst the old dogs, 50, 60, 70, they're all dried up. There's nothing new coming out of them, but the new ones come along and all of a sudden it just like, blows a big hole in lots of their theories.
yeah. I am very thirsty for water, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Must
go and get some
get some.
water.
Yeah,
This book, obviously, I mean, it's so deep, it's so complex that the whole thing needs to be read. I'm just saying, Andre. I'm just saying to the viewer that
yeah,
this book is so dense, and it's just to pick out one line here and there is effectively just picking out a few pages of this book and talking about it.
yeah,
Um, there's so much to say, and to do it justice, the whole book needs to be read and discussed. But
yeah.
who's got time for that? I mean, it will take people like 3 or 4 weeks to read it. I think this book it takes about 30 hours to read.
Hmm.
Um, and so who's got 30 hours? It's almost a whole week working. If people read an hour a day,
Yeah.
then it'll take them a whole month.
But there is another thing to it. Ma- Many people play video games for many
Mm.
many hours, and
Yeah,
they do it on after the work, many hours, you know,
yeah.
sometimes. So a book shouldn't be that hard to get
No,
through either.
no, it shouldn't be because if people have got leisure for playing video games or doing whatever, if they've got leisure, then they've got time to read. But the vast
Yeah,
majority of people, they can't lend their minds to it. And if you look at people with families, well, they get up in the morning, they get the kids ready, they pack them off to school, they take the young ones to creche, they go to work, they go to do some shopping, they come back, they pick the kids up, maybe they go shopping again, or they start preparing their evening meal, they bath the kids, and do the homework. Reading. Who the fuck's got time for reading? If you are a family person, no one's got time for
yeah,
reading.
no,
No one's got time to set their mind down to start thinking about wacky out there things that don't
yeah,
concern them in their lives. It's the prerogative of a philosopher.
yeah,
And so there's not that many of it around.
no.
So what else did you underline?
I could the next part as well. I am.
Yeah. Okay,
Uh,
I'll read that then before we get on to the Eureka.
yeah.
Um, that bit, yeah. So I'll use the analogy of looking at the structure of governments from a perspective as if looking at an ant colony. That's to say, from a vantage high above, so that we can see the entirety of its functionality. When we do this, we see the uncanny similarities to how people and ants live. Nothing is new under this observation, but the longer we look and the closer we look, the more we will glean. If the reader is anything like the author, you would have spent untold hours observing how ants operate and arrange their hierarchical systems. You would have done this in the field and via YouTube and TV documentaries. By the time we have gathered much explanatory information, we will be equipped with exceedingly perplexing knowledge in that there appears to be an intelligence that matches that of a human being on many fronts. For example, I once watched a documentary of a colony of regular black ants that lived in a jungle. This particular breed of ant sent out scouts to gather data on a nearby colony of the same species about 150 meters away. The colony which sent out the scouts wanted to know how big the adjacent colony was to determine whether it was likely to be a threat to them or a possible benefit. When it was somehow discerned that the neighboring colony was smaller than their own, an executive decision was made and it was decided to invade the smaller colony, kill the soldier ants, whose job it was to protect their colony from intruders, then kidnap the queen and steal the larvae. Once this had been achieved, all of the worker ants of the vanquished colony followed their queen back to the victor's colony and integrated amongst them. It's funny, you see, because I just recited that from
Yeah.
memory, almost word for word. So
Yeah.
I've got a very, very good memory, and
Yeah.
the whole of this book is in my memory somewhere.
Yeah.
So when I saw this incredible documentary, a shiver ran down my spine as I struggled desperately to discern how this amazing feat of warmongering strategy actually manifests. A victory such as the one I witnessed would have made Napoleon Bonaparte look impressive to the British generals of his day. I contemplated for weeks, relentlessly researching the intelligence of ants, and although I came upon many amazing facts about our global partners, I couldn't find anyone explaining how ants accomplish such strategic marvels, and to this day I still haven't. How could it be possible that ants have brains that work in a very similar way, if not identical to ours, when it came to warfare? Did ants actually have fully functioning cerebral cortexes which enabled them to reason and strategize? This notion seriously unnerved me, not only because of the astounding cerebral ability of ants, but also because of the size of their brains, which supposedly yield all the required neuronal activity to plan and wage war. The conundrum arises when we consider that hitherto it is a well accepted scientific observation that animal intelligence is based on the more extensive the brain, the more cognizant animals are. Suppose ants were capable of logic and reasoning to the degree that it is evident that they appear to be. In that case, scientists should look again at their brain size intelligence hypothesis, because it most certainly doesn't apply to them. None of this scientific stuff worked for me in solving my issue with our tiny neighbours. No surprises there, though, because that has been the case all of my life. Science has never had the answers what I was looking for. So I thought it best to continue looking for them in my usual realms, philosophy and spiritualism. That's, where the real answers lie, in
Yeah.
philosophy and spirituality. Science, they're shooting in the fucking dark.
Yeah.
And that, incidentally, is what this book is saying.
Yeah.
This book is decrying the extent of science and decrying the haughty nature of scientists when they dismiss the spiritual and the phenomenological and the philosophical. If they can't put it in the test tube or look at it under a microscope, then they discount it. Now, bearing
Yeah.
in mind, of course, this book was written in 1775, before quantum physics. So they knew nothing about that, but they did know about atoms because
Yeah.
Democritus of ancient Greece spoke about atoms.
Yes.
So this book is all about looking at science's failings. The next one in this duo, because it's a double volume, is decrying religion, and all of the failings of the religion. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Mm.
But this book, I don't know how long it took me to read. Sometimes I do 10 pages a day, sometimes I do 20, sometimes I do 5. So it took several months
Yeah,
to read this book. It does, but
yeah,
very, very valuable. Very valuable. And it's like reading this book. It takes a lot of contemplation. People are going to have to do a lot of Google searching if they really want
yeah,
to understand this stuff, because it's all come out of my uh, brain, out of my experience, out of my wisdom, out of my philosophy from
yeah,
61 years on this planet.
yeah,
I've had a lot of experience, and I wrote this book from fucking memory.
yeah,
That's quite phenomenological. I just downloaded it. I was nonstop 5 hours a day for 8 months. Ba 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 ba
mm.
ba ba ba. It was like I was channeling this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it flowed unburdened,
Yeah,
just flow.
yeah. And
Mm.
I
Because
often
there's
think,
something called writer's block as well, you know.
yeah, yeah. I
But you
mean,
know perfectly well to how get through that as well.
yeah, I never had writer's block, but what I had was I would come to the computer having finished a chapter, and I had no idea of what the chapter was going to be about, because I never wrote down, things in any order or anything like that. I was just calling from memory, and I'm like, well, what happened next? Oh, this happened next, and then that happened next, and then that happened, and then I had this experience, and then someone gave me that book, and it's a journey. The book's a
Yeah,
journey, and some
yeah,
people say the book is a bit disjointed. It doesn't seem to flow, and I'm like, well, you're looking at it from the wrong perspective. Life is
yeah,
disjointed. Sometimes we fall sick, and sometimes we get windfalls, and sometimes we have great jobs, and other times we're broke, and that's how fucking life is. It's up and
yeah.
down. And
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
not holding on to things and so on.
yeah,
Like we change. Sometimes are on that end of the spectrum. Other times we are on the other end of the spectrum. And sometimes one thought might think, "Oh, I remember when I was at that time of the spectrum. I missed that I was that. I shouldn't left that behind." Then they little by little come to that side of the spectrum again, maybe.
yeah. And
Yeah,
people can actually just open this book at any subheading,
yeah,
um, or most certainly any chapter.
yeah,
And they could read that without reading all the rest. But if they want to get the full picture of the development, then they'll need to read it from the beginning. Um,
yeah,
so let me just continue then. As an aside, if ants were as cerebral as they appear to be, then the chances are that they were well aware that human beings have similar intelligence in many ways. You would have thought that they have been observing humanity with all our destructive ways for millennia and working to avoid us at all costs. Whoa, hang on a minute. This sort of thinking is getting out of hand. Why is it that if ants can think like humans, they aren't studied more for their intelligence and are revered as being very high up in the evolutionary intelligence hierarchy? Who's going to answer that question? Why aren't ants listed alongside primates, octopus, dolphins, and whole range of other animals? Eventually leading up to the kings of the jungle, humans. Why aren't people talking about the massive intelligence of ants and studying them with their warmongering and all their
Yeah.
activities? Because it's very, very intelligent. There are
Yeah.
some obscure scientists doing it. You can watch videos of scientists which have been just studying termites for 40 years, and they go out into the outback of Australia or Africa, and they monitor termites. They get to know different colonies. They know how they are. They know how lazy they are. They know how industrious they are. They know their foraging patterns and everything. They do a lot of study. And what they've actually done is, on a few occasions, they've cut the top off of one of these huge termite mounds, and they've poured in molten aluminum.
Mm.
And when they've poured in all this molten aluminum, they've let it dry, and then they have dug away all of the surrounding soil. And what they've discovered, that they've got about an expanse of 40 feet wide and deep, and about 30 feet or 20 feet high. These colonies are massive, and they all go down into different tunnels which do different things. And you've got larders whereby they'll bring in vegetation and they'll leave it there to go moldy because they feed on the mold. And then these termites have got all different sorts of ventilations to keep them at optimum temperature. They're absolutely very, very genius.
Mm.
And so, yeah, there's a few people have discovered this and studied it, but it's not common parlance, and it's not mainstream or anything like that.
Yeah.
And it should be.
Yeah. We can't know what is in their mind, so to speak,
Yeah.
because it's so outlandish to look at.
Yeah, but by studying
From
their behavior, you can
yeah,
see that they act in very similar ways to hunter gathering human beings.
yeah,
So who knows? But because I found the notion of feasibility of those tiny exoskeletons having that level of intelligence so preposterous on the premise of brain size, I thought it best to revert to Occam's razor philosophy and see where that led. So I did this for some time until I began to see a pattern forming in nature, which would lead to my eureka moment.
mm,
Now, I'll read this next bit, and then I'll let you read one. So,
yeah,
Eureka. I think I found a part of the answer. My conclusion as to how it was possible for ants to act like humans came from my observations of the greater picture, i.e., nature as a whole, including the physical and metaphysical. If I have learned one thing during my life study, it is that we must include both facets of how we experience life, because we have an equal spiritual and physical set of tools at our disposal by which to do this. If we leave half of our tool bag at home when we go out to complete a job, we will only get half a job done due to the lack of required tools. Prior to my epiphany, or eureka moment, I reflected upon how in nature fish form shoals, bird forms flocks, bees form swarms, wildebeest form herds, wolves form packs, crabs form consortiums, and both owls and human beings, curiously enough, form parliaments.
mm,
Are owls really considered to be that wise that they have their convening in groups named after human political conventions? That's the question I ask, because they call, when you've got a few hours together, they call it a parliament.
yeah,
And, parliaments are where politicians meet to
yeah,
plan and plot the nature and the course of the country. And so owls obviously are very, very, are considered very, very bright. A wise old
mm,
owl, of course.
yeah.
Along my journey, I had also acquainted myself with the mystical fields of study, such as egregores and morphic resonance. So, after adding those arrows to my quiver of knowledge, I began putting the pieces of the mystery together from a collective, broader perspective. Morphic resonance and egregore energy. Take it away, Andre.
Yeah, that's interesting how egregores and morphic resonance goes together. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they're both absolutely phenomenological. They're both very, very powerful. Um, they both pertain to energy. Um, the egregore, of course, it it has autonomy. It has self autonomy, whereas the morphic resonance fields, it's the actual animal within the field that has the autonomy.
yeah. It's much like a crowd psychology when it applies to human in its uh, s- strictest form, so to speak.
Yeah, so when we have crowd psychology, we've got humans acting in the morphic resonance, but then there is a power over and above the crowd.
Yeah,
Um, uh, you see, psychologists study human behavior individually, and they say when human beings are in groups, crowds, unruly groups,
yeah,
they act very, very different, very
yes,
unpredictable, and all of the people in that group could be law-abiding citizens
yeah,
and with clean records, and they've never done any thing to break the law before. But when they get into this marauding group, there is an egregoric energy which takes over, which causes violence.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And like you mentioned, Le Bon later on as well, author of Crowd Psychology. Uh,
Yes,
he also talks about how it's it's gathered around the least high denominator of the human, so to speak. It becomes very primitive, very
it
aggressive.
becomes very primal. That's
Yeah,
it. And so, what I'm saying, and, other people, who are studying these things will say something similar. Look, um, there are these energies in the cosmos. This is what I say, people. And when they see a manifestation of human energy coming together, they are attracted to that. They go to it, they feed on the energy, and they manipulate the energy like a demon.
yeah,
Like some sort of nefarious negative energy that wants to cause destruction and mayhem.
yeah,
And when the crowd disperses, the egregore goes back into the ether,
yeah,
just waiting for its time to come again. Now, this is what I'm saying about morphic resonance. I'm saying that these fields exist.
yeah,
Before the queen gives birth to any larvae, she gives birth to the larvae in the pre existing morphic field.
yeah,
And this stuff, I mean, this is fascinating. This really is something. And, people have only just started to discover this sort of stuff. And, if you look into morphic resonance, the only person speaking about this is Ruby Sheldrake. It
yeah,
is his baby that he, has been working on for all of his life, about 40 years, his professional life. But the thing is about it, like many, many things, when we are in this particular zone of vibration, of connection with the cosmos, then we too can tap into this information. Now, I was getting my own ideas of morphic resonance before I even knew about Rupert Sheldrake. Now, I never called it morphic resonance. How would I know that? But I used to go out walking with Paul, and I used to say to Paul, I say, what actually is the energy that keeps flocks of birds together, schools of fish together, people in groups and parliament? What is that power source there? I knew it was something. And I knew it didn't pertain to the brains because, look, fish don't have any brains as such. So why is it that they are always milling around in this one energy field? I mean, you
Yeah.
could say, well, it's for protection because in numbers there's less opportunity of them being eaten, but there isn't really. They think there is, but there's probably more opportunity because, like, if you've got a shark or something, it dives into a school of fish. Well, with one bite, it can take a dozen fish. Whereby, if they're all individual, then there's only one of them, is going to be eaten.
Yeah.
And so it's a fallacy. I don't think that's the reason they stay together. I just think they're gregarious creatures.
Yeah. That also talks about when human beings come together. If they are in a crowd, at least the governing power knows how to strike right away. But if they are split in different cells, then it's harder.
Yes. Yes, a good point. It's a good point. And that's why they
Yeah.
always want us in the hive mind.
Yes.
And so when they generate the hive mind in cities, well, there's an energy field which everybody is buzzing within. And all they have to do is manipulate the energy field. They don't have to manipulate 6 billion people or fucking, 1 million people in the city. They just infiltrate the energy field. How do they do that? By propaganda, by changing the atmosphere of the energy field,
Yeah.
changing the vibration of it.
Yes.
Andre, our last conversation had one comment. It was a
Yeah, I
fucking
saw
great.
that.
It was a fucking great conversation. 280 people watched that video. One comment. What the fuck is wrong with people?
Yeah,
And
I thought
when
that was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just fucking bizarre. And when people listen to this, they'll probably be the same. I don't know why people can't find this interesting. It must be because they don't know what the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah. Hmm.
They,
I
they, they
don't
don't
know.
they don't have the wherewithal to get their heads around it remotely. Because if they did have, then somebody surely must have something to say. Oh yeah, I've heard of Rupert Sheldrake's thing. I've often thought about this. Oh yeah, that's a very good point. Fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Fucking nothing.
Yeah,
What's the
that's weird. I actually saw that one of our videos we had wasn't that up to like 400 or something.
maybe
Did
I've
you?
not looked.
Yeah, I looked at the different a while back, and I saw that one of them had like up to 400 or
And how
something.
many comments?
Maybe it was 15. I don't remember. Maybe
Right.
less.
Mm. And that was probably
Uh,
two people talking with each other or something. Or, of course, half of the comments come from me replying back. So if there's 7 comments, then at least 3 of them are mine.
yeah.
It's shocking, absolutely shocking. But anyway,
Mm,
I don't know.
yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. So, morphic resonance and egregoric energy fields. If now, to ensure we are all on track, I revert to my original question. What is it that holds power systems in place, like governments and monarchies? By studying these power systems, we can see that they manifest in a never ending cycle of passing the baton. Power changes hands continuously, of course, for many different reasons, but the energy that pertains to any given power source never disappears. As soon as a leader has re- served his or her term, another is elected to fill that leadership position. From casual observation, this format looks pretty elementary and structured, but what if a leader dies of natural causes? Then, within minutes or hours of the leader's death being announced, another leader will be declared. Never is an empty seat of power allowed to exist. If there is a coup, then the current position of the power is usurped by a new and opposing political force instantly. The transition will then continue until something changes the present state, and so the system continues, stepping back a few metaphorical paces, paces to where we observe the phenomena of power structures from. We can observe an expansive overview. We will see that hundreds or thousands of people are involved in these energy fields at varying degrees of importance, i.e., perspective, political parties have their entourage that paves the way for their mascot holder, ultimately to sit upon the symbolic throne of government. Then there are the opposing parties vying for their supremacy in a very similar way. There could be
Scores,
yeah,
scores.
yeah, there could be scores of these sub factions competing for leadership positions, and there often are. Then there are all of the clerks and the civil servants, media, and other workers supporting the infrastructure that feeds off the energy of the invisible field, builders and cleaners, lawyers and the laypersons. The list is endless. Copious amounts of people are drawn into the energy field and give it stability and momentum. Hordes of varying sectors of society feed on the energy, and in turn, they feed by it,
Are fed by
or
it.
are fed by it. It's a reciprocal energy exchange for all involved.
Yeah, so when we've got these power structures like Parliament, it um, gives energy to a whole entourage of people: lawyers, cleaners, bankers, builders, and all that. There's a whole. It's like an ant colony or a beehive. Everybody is creating energy and extracting energy. So everybody's being paid energy from the coffers. That's just a paper issue. It's a monetary. It's a societal thing. But the real thing going on is the human energy is being fed on and generating at the same time this egregoric type energy, like let's say like a black cloud hanging over a government building. It's that thing that's a living thing.
Yeah,
And if a bomb fell on that building and it killed everybody in it, that energy would still be there.
yeah,
And then when people started to convene in another building, that energy would find its way over to where the people are and continue again.
yeah,
And it's a bizarre thing because when we look at like the president of the United States, we can see that those individuals, they are nothing to do with the energy. They're just being used. They are fucking puppets, and the energy that the egregore is playing puppetry with them. You can see that they don't have any power, no energy at all. They come
Yeah.
and then they go, and then like there's no difference. 1 minute Biden was, supposed to be leading the country, and then all of a sudden he just disappeared, and Kamala is leading the country. No fuckers leading the country. This energy field is churning out. It's spitting out what it doesn't want, and it's sucking in what it does want.
Yeah.
And this is what's going on. And so I think these are spirit forms unto themselves. I really do.
Yeah. Like, of course, the Freemasonry and all that kind of stuff, people behind the curtains that you don't see, and so on.
Yeah,
And especially now, it's more than ever like that if it wasn't that before, also.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
Uh,
it seems more preposterous now than ever, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's more easy to discern
Yeah.
uh, because everyone's going. It's like a ship out on the ocean which doesn't have a rudder, a captain, a navigator, or any deckhands. It's just bobbing up and down, and people are going, "Where's the fucking captain gone?
Yeah.
Where's the compass?" It just it isn't there at this moment in time. Um, And so, yeah, just as an aside, there's going to be some very, very, very big manifestations in the world very soon, because Israel is intent on taking Iran out because Iran want to take Israel out. There's no doubt about it. They are at each other's throats, and they really are looking for war. Also, Iran has openly stated that it wants to eliminate President Trump. Because if President Trump gets into the presidency, President Trump is going to be big time on Iran's case because it wants to stifle the economy, cripple its economy. Because over the last few years of Biden's inauguration, Iran has got very, very rich, and they could be working on a nuclear bomb. And if they get a nuclear bomb, then they're going to drop it on fucking Israel straight away. So they want to kill Trump. Can you imagine
Mm.
what's going on? They're sending their secret service over to the states to try to do this, and so
Mm.
there's already been 2 attempts with American people, and so yeah, the shit's coming down, and then
Yeah.
of course all this shit in the Ukraine, people are starting maybe to revolt against Putin, and they're calling for his resignation. There's a whole lot of shit going on, and if Trump should get into the presidential position, then that would seriously fuck up the apple cart of the globalists big time.
Yeah.
They want him dead. And if he survives, I'll be very, very surprised. And if he actually gets in, I'll be super, super surprised. But I don't think it will last long.
Mm.
There's too many people that want him dead. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's the Matrix. That's a whole nother world.
Yes.
So where do you get to? Did you get to? Oh yeah, fed
Uh,
by specific energy changes. Um, okay, so instead of reading the whole thing, we'll
yeah.
just go back to your highlights again,
Yeah.
because we've given people a good insight of what's going on in this book.
Yes, sir. Then I have a highlight here on page 520. When monkeys from attacking groups to infiltrate, uh, okay, I read it again. When monkeys from attacking groups to infiltrate and capture other species of primate, we don't have an issue explaining how they do it because the monkeys have large brains very similar to ours, and so scientists extrapolate many inferences to explain the clever strategies that are deployed in any attack. But when ant colonies do the same thing, the brain size hypothesis cannot be assumed or used to answer our questions as to how do those tiny skeletal
Exoskeletons.
exoskeletons achieve that super intelligent feat? My question doesn't seem to ever have been asked. How do ants carry out very strategic attacks when, as far as we could gather, they conceivably don't possess the brain power? I'm suggesting that the obvious assumption is that they are having their intelligence fed to them via an invisible collective consciousness like Wi-Fi.
Yes.
So that was a thing that we went through earlier as well, yeah. But
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting, this aspect about the Wi-Fi and the consciousness, how everything is intermingled like that, so to speak.
Yeah, well, you see, what I've done throughout, this past 14, 15 years is, of course, I've read about lots of things, and I've experienced lots of things, and I've put two and two together, and I've gone, well, look, the Hindus are speaking about the Akashic records, this invisible field in the ether where everything is known and everything that's ever been known is there. And when we tune in our brains to that field, then we can receive that information. And I would think that this is what great people have done. Einstein and Newton and Tchaikovsky and Beethoven and Michelangelo and all these people, their brains somehow have tapped in to that Wi-Fi where all information pertains to, and they've downloaded some of it. And so, well, when you look at that, most people before the advent of Wi-Fi would have poo-pooed that. They would have gone, information in the ether and this, that, and the other. But now with the advent of Wi-Fi, they can't dismiss that, because you go, well, fucking Wi-Fi is all over the planet, permeating through every single nook and cranny on our planet. Information. If you could have infrared vision or whatever to see this data, it would be like this Lucy in the film Lucy, when she takes this drug, the drug bag bursts in her stomach, and it makes her super intelligent, and everything she saw was binary. She
Hmm.
saw the information in everything. So if we had the capacity to see that, we'd see the information all around. Everything we
Yeah,
could possibly think of.
yeah, and then comes the Neuralink by
Yep.
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And that will maybe for many look like, wow, cool, I want the Neuralink brain. But that will turn out to be like a restricted form of Akashic record, while the ability to reach the Akashic record has probably been there in the past, very prevalent among the learns.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is just inverted system, I would think, to
Yeah.
restrict the human being even more, so to speak.
Yes, and I write about what I think the Akashic record is and how we can tap into it, and I state that I think I've tapped into it on lots of occasions, and I write how I've done that, and I think the portal to tapping into the Akashic records, at least one of them, unless you are gifted initially, is meditation, when
Yeah.
you still your mind to the vibration of the cosmos, which is 7.8 hertz Schumann. When you still your mind to that point, then I'm pretty sure you can tap into. Because what I know is that the very first time I started to meditate, I was getting download after download after download. It seems that maybe my third eye popped, because what actually happened after I'd been meditating about 6 months, I was meditating one particular day, and I write about it in here. I think you would have read it by now. I'm
Yeah.
sitting by a lake, and all of a sudden, within my mind, it just goes pooh, and then my mind is open. It's like the cosmos. It's absolutely expansive and empty. And I'm like, wow, what the fuck's that? But since then, every time I come out of a meditation, I get downloads, downloads, downloads. And that's when I started doing my YouTube channel, because I had so much info, I was receiving so much information. So it turned on my antennae. Meditation turned on my antennae. And now I think, because my third eye is open, my antennae switched on, how is it that I can just keep talking for hours every single day? How is it I do that? Why is it I do that? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Something's happened.
Yeah. Yeah, you really have that capability of talking immensely, and just a lot of interesting stuff that just come to your mind.
Yeah,
And
just
I can be very talkative. I can be very quiet, you know.
hmm
Um, but when I'm on psychedelics, then I am extremely talkative, and everything I say makes perfect sense for me as well. And I know it's not jibber jab when I talk on psychedelics. Many people probably talking a lot of bullshit when they are on entheogens and so on. But I recognize a great depth to it.
yes. And so, um, obviously, that attributes to what I'm doing now also, because there's so many things, since my spiritual awakening, then started to meditate, and then taking entheogens, and all this stuff. And so it's kind of like in some small way gave me superpowers, that I just see things from ways that I see things like I'm on psychedelics all the time.
Yeah,
Because when we're on entheogens, we see things in a very deep and profound and obscure sort of way. Now my mind works like that all the time. And
yeah,
so I'm thinking, well, it's attributed to that then also.
yeah. Hmm. I have a underlining more here. Um, I think we take that one also. Then we save it, the rest to another time, because I see you are getting a bit like
Yeah, a
that,
bit
and
tired.
me too. You know, I'm 1 hour
Ahead.
later here. You know,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
So bedtime soon. So on page 522, an egregore, pronounced Egregore, is a group thought from a form. It can be,
A group thought form.
yeah, a group thought form. It can be created intentionally or unintentionally, and becomes an autom- out,
Autonomous.
autonomous entity with the power to influence a group with a common purpose, like a family, a club, a political party, a church, or a country, can create an egregore for better or worse, depending upon the type of thought that created it.
Yeah.
So within a community, there can be created an egregore from the when all the people come together and mix their energies and so on.
Yeah, well, I think Wotan I was an Egregore.
Yeah,
You know, the god of war.
yeah. His Wotan was a god of hero as well, and he was a shaman as well. So
Yeah.
he has many different. Wotan is actually the Germanic word for Odin.
Yes.
Yeah, so Odin was the wise one as well. You know, he offered his own one eye to get the knowledge, higher
Yeah,
knowledge.
I think it's like lots of mythological gods. You know, they're both evil and good. It's like
Yeah,
Yahweh, evil motherfucker, and benevolent. Uh, they all have to be because they wouldn't be balanced if they were one thing.
yeah. I remember Wotan is like uh, Satan is a certain aspect, and then Wotan, then Lucifer. It's a similar aspect of the same. You know,
Right. Yes.
so
Yeah. It's fascinating, and
yeah,
uh, so I'll just read the theosophical viewpoint
yeah.
before we go on to the Rosicrucian thing, and then we'll skip over that next time
Yeah,
because let's have a look. Other definitions. Yeah. Um, I'm just going to read the highlights on this. I'll read the theosophical viewpoint and then I'll read the highlights.
yeah,
So the concept was discussed in early theosophical literature and is well known in esoteric thought, but it is not a mainstream idea. In discussing egregores, Helena Petrova Blavatsky wrote, "That's the woman that wrote this book I'm reading."
yeah,
You know.
yeah. She's then after her came Rudolf Steiner as well. I think so. They're
Yep.
similar to each
Yep.
other in a
Yep.
way.
Similar sort of thing.
Yeah,
And so yeah, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky wrote, "Every thought so evolved with energy from the brain creates nolens, volens, willingly and unwillingly a shape, continuing the states that such a shape is absolutely unconscious unless it is the creation of an adept who has a preconceived object in giving it the thought form. Consciousness, or rather the appearance of consciousness, derived from the adept's will of consciousness. Theosophists first thought the idea of a thought form to the public mind with Annie Besant and W.C. Leadbeater's book, Thought Forms in the Early 20th Century. Now, of course, Plato was probably the first to speak about thought forms. He was
yeah,
saying that everything is a thought form,
yeah,
and there is no physical world as such. It's just an idea. You know, I think Plato was the first idealist. Um,
yeah,
then there's the Rosicrucian perspective, who also embraced the concept of egregores. Um, then there's other definitions. An energized astral form produced consciously or unconsciously by human agency. Then there is looking at Hitler as generating an egregore in Germany.
yeah,
And So lots of egregores can be nefarious, but they also can be beneficent.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, it says here positive and negative egregores. Egregores can attach themselves to buildings or places according to clairvoyants like Charles Webster Leadbeater and Jeffrey Hodgson, and many of these egregores are positive forces. Ancient cathedrals are often known for their healing powers or supernatural connections to the unseen world and unseen entities. Caves where ancients used to worship have become the object of pilgrimages. Local residents or pilgrims can feed these locally based egregores. So yeah, the next bit is the morphic resonance, which we'll start on next time. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
that's on
yeah.
page
Let's see.
220, 529.
529.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm on 26, then I'll read until that next time, then, yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah, and the morphic resonance is only like it's about 5 or 6 pages before we will be on 23.
Yeah,
So we can do that morphic resonance.
yeah.
Uh, I don't know how long it take us, but whatever happens anyway, whatever happens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, I do have some underlinings on the way coming as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Like on page 523, there's one underlining, but smaller underlinings, and so on. And page 524, it's one underlining, and 25, another one, and so on.
yeah. Well, I
So,
mean, yeah. So okay, until next time then. So yeah.
yeah.
Thanks for that, Andre. Appreciated that.
Thank you too, mister.
And see if we can get anybody interested and intrigued about these egregores and morphic resonance in the
Yeah,
comments.
yeah.
Whatever. All right, dude.
Whatever.
Enjoy the rest
Yeah.
of the evening, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, you too, mister.
Cheers, Joe. Bye now.
Cheers.